The Racing Postcast in association with Paddy Power. They prize support UK and Irish racing the night before.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're very welcome to the latest Racing Postcast. It's Oaks Day at Epsom, and with me to discuss the third classic of the year in studio is Graham Rodway. On the line from Ireland is our Irish editor Jonathan Mullen, and with all the odds from Paddy Power is Brendan Duke. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Hello, Ronan.
Right, let's kick off straight away. I'm going to get show a betting for the Oaks off you, Brendan, please. To my mind, this is the smallest Oaks field since 2004, so you might give us a price for each of the 9 fillies, please.
No trouble. Evens, Minding, 11-2 Skiffle, 7-1 Turret Rocks, 9-1 Somehow, 10-1 Architecture, 12-1 Seventh Heaven, 20-1 Harlequin, 25-1 Diamonds Pour Moi, and 66 Australian Queen.
Brilliant, Brendan. And we've had, I know it's a gorgeous, and you've been giving me a bit of banter about the weather back home. It's absolute winter conditions here all week. I don't know where it's come from. We've heard plenty about the rain and the Derby. What kind of effect has the rain had on the Oaks and your market?
Not a huge effect. Skiffle, I suppose, with the Dubawi angle. Most Dubawi's handle cut in the ground. I don't imagine she'd be any different. So she's been the popular one. There's also an each way element, of course, but I think the ground is a help to her. We've laid a bit of her. We've laid a bit of Architecture this morning. Now I don't know whether that's a ground or a tactical angle, but she has won on easy ground. So they're the two probably against the fav we've been laying.
Okay, look, it's interesting you say those two because we've got little clips from Charlie Appleby and Hugo Palmer to come in a bit. But first of all, there's only one place to start. Graham, I'll come to you first, if that's okay. Minding is probably one of those classic you're either with or against. Are you with her or against her?
Yeah, I would have been with her without the rain. It's quite a tough one, really, because when she won the 1,000 guineas, she looked an absolutely outstanding filly, and the way she skipped across the ground was so impressive. I just like the way she moved. She reminded me a little bit of Frankel, the way that he used to float across the ground. She floated home that day at Newmarket, and then, although she was beaten in the Irish Guineas on soft ground, I thought she actually came out the race as the best horse, because Jet Setting made what was quite a favourable gallop, I thought, for a leader. Minding made a big move in the middle of the race to get up with her. Just was done by a horse that's probably better on that sort of ground, and they were miles clear of the rest. I'm not sure she's going to be the strongest stayer if it is really testing, but we don't really know how testing it's going to be until we see the first few races. It's a really hard banker or blowout situation. I'll probably be against her. I think she's the best horse in the race by some distance.
Okay. Jonathan, I'll pose the same question to you. You're either with or against Minding at that sort of price. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I'd be interested to hear what Brendan has to say in terms of price. I wouldn't be surprised if you woke up to 6-4 tomorrow morning, Minding. I think she's one that they'll take on, both because of, I suppose she had unnecessarily tough prep run at the Curragh, a run that probably wasn't part of the plan, and comes in here with pedigree, doubts in terms of stamina and all that. So I think she's by far the best filly in the race. I think the ground probably kept Manners on one price here on Turret Rocks, because I think she needs it quick. I think she would have been a big market mover this week had the ground been quicker. So if you presume that Turret Rocks won't have her ground, no matter what happens. Minding on rating of 119, to go out Turret Rocks and you go all the way back down to 103 Skiffle. So she's a lot to play with here. I think she'll probably win. I think the likes of Architecture, for example, will make it a really stiff test. An interesting race, I think, for a betting each way without the likes of Diamond Pour Moi from Ralph Beckett, who does so well with these fillies. She's probably interesting at a big price, but I think Minding just with Turret Rocks definitely not getting her ground. And Minding was very good on softer ground in the Fillies Mile last year and in the Moyglare. I think the ground won't be a problem. I put a line to the Curragh run like Graham. It clearly wasn't the plan. I'd say probably it's a bit like giving Usain Bolt 5 minutes notice for the Olympic 100-metre final, last one to run a pair of jeans. I mean, I doubt she was prepared for the race at all and just stepped in at very, very much the last minute. I think this was the plan, and as long as that race hasn't left a scar, I think Minding would just be too good for them.
Even take away soft ground, Jonathan, do we definitely think Minding will stay this trip?
No, definitely not. I mean, last year we definitely would have presumed Air Force Blue would have stayed a mile, and whatever you think of the different excuses and so on, Aidan O'Brien was flagging up pretty early that he's not sure he'd stay a mile. I mean, she got a mile last year at Newmarket twice, once with a bit of cut in the ground, destroyed Natra, a very good horse on soft ground. So everyone presumed that she would get it based on her 2-year-old career as opposed to her pedigree. Lily Langtry, her dam, was a very quick horse, but Galileo obviously is a huge staying influence. I'd be happy that Aidan O'Brien is happy that she'll stay, but that definitely wouldn't encourage you to back her at evens. I'd be looking for 6-4, and I think Brendan and the lads will give us that tomorrow morning.
Okay, we'll see. And maybe just the other two from the Ballydoyle camp, Jonathan.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't not put a line through somehow. I know that they were a little unhappy with her at Chester, obviously. But she definitely goes in heavy ground. She beat Shamreen, who's won a couple of times since. At Leopardstown, beat her nicely that day. The maidens turned out to be okay. At Chester, she clearly didn't handle the track. She wasn't going to yard for Ryan Moore early. And both Somehow and Seventh Heaven, the Chester and Lingfield Oaks Trials horses, Aidan O'Brien said of the Derby press day in Ballydoyle that neither seemed to handle those respective tracks and therefore wouldn't go to Epsom. Obviously with no Ballydoyle now, no Coolmore in the race, it's a different story. I wouldn't be surprised if either or both made the frame actually running it, because I think especially Somehow I think she's a far better horse than we saw at Chester, but you'd have to have those nagging doubts about her having the track, and definitely she would be in the same league as Minding.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Well, Brendan told us that Skiffle was the kind of springer in the market, and we have a clip from Charlie Appleby here, who supplemented the filly.
When she won a Goodwood there, we're very impressed with that. Like I say, we were looking more towards perhaps going for the Ribblesdale, but she's come out the race very well. Stepping up to a mile and a half, we feel is only going to hopefully see a bit more improvement out of her. She does all of her best work the last 2 furlongs. At Ascot, she was very slow away that day, but made some good late headway. And then at Goodwood, I felt that they've got a real good genuine pace there. William gave her a lovely ride, dropping her down on the inside there and teaching her a lot. But again, the favourite that day, we thought it might have just stolen a march from us, but she ground it out, and she ground it out well that day.
Okay, Graham, Skiffle, are you a fan? And she'll probably stay, won't she?
Yeah, she looks the certain stayer in the field. I think that she won't have a problem with the ground either. And she was quite impressive when she won at Goodwood. I thought the winner had got away from her a little bit, but she cut her down to win quite nicely. She's not in the same class as Minding, but she is a rock-solid stayer in the field, and I think she'll run really well without winning. Okay,
Jonathan, you echo those, or what's your opinion on Skiffle?
Yeah, again, you heard Charlie Appleby there. This does seem like Plan B. Initially they were heading to Ascot, and now with Minding getting beast the Curragh, I think everyone thinks this is a bit more open than it looks. So I think it is an afterthought, no question of word about that. But we've seen in recent years fillies going into the Oaks with ratings in the high 90s, early 100s, and looking unlikely winners a couple of weeks out and end up winning the Oaks. So they're definitely entitled to take the chance. Godolphin are on a high at the moment, and I suppose they didn't mind throwing a few quid at this and seeing what might happen, especially with the I suppose the stamina doubts about Minding. Personally, I don't think she'd be good enough, and I think a few more maybe right in the 90s might even improve past her. I wouldn't even back her without, but I think she'd run well.
Okay, well, you can see what they're thinking. It's an open race if you
absolutely.
take Minding out. We also have a little clip from Hugo Palmer on architecture. He compares the filly to last year's Irish Oaks winner, Covert Love.
At the same stage, she's much better. Covert Love had just won a handicap off a mark of 82 this time last year, and this filly's been second in an Oaks trial, rated 97, so she's a stone better at the same stage. Similar type physically, both balanced. Both stand over quite a lot of ground, quite rangy. Covert Love's a bigger filly, but they're a similar style of horse.
Okie doke. Jeannie Mac. Hugo Palmer speaks poshly, doesn't he? He's fantastic. Graham, talk about architecture for me. Are you a fan?
I am a fan, yeah. Was very impressed with her maiden win. I think it was at Nottingham last season. It was quite impressive. Travelled nicely through the race, and I backed her at Lingfield, and again she travelled beautifully through the race. Thought I was going to be collecting for most of the way, just got outstayed towards the finish. Not too concerned about that, because the way she went through the race, she looked like a class act, and I would expect that Hugo Palmer would have left a little bit to work on. So I'm not sure she would have been 100% fully wound up for that. I think she'll improve for the run. She's the horse that I'm interested in the market Without Minding. I'm sure all those bookies will be pricing up the race tomorrow Without Minding, and Architecture is the one that really interests me in that market.
Okay, Brendan, I'll come back to you. Anything kind of at a bigger price that you can make a case for than maybe we haven't mentioned so far?
Yes, I should just say to Graham that it's 5-1 Architecture Without. We have that betting up.
Okay, doke.
That's fair.
I can see the argument that Johnny was making for Somehow, because this is a very interesting race tactically. There's no pace in the race at all. Now, normally, Frankie can't resist this because he's a master judge of pace, and I would expect him to jump out in front on Architecture. But she looked fairly tricky in Lingfield. It may have been greenness, or it may be that she's a bit of attitude about her, so they might be reluctant to make them running. And in that case, you're sort of down to Somehow, who has to make it a good test because she looks like she needs 2 miles. So Somehow, if she's at a tactical advantage, I could see her plugging on for a place.
That be your selection then, Brendan?
Oh, certainly not. Minding will absolutely eat these. It's
not like you to tip up a favourite, is it?
Well, indeed, yeah, no imagination. But I mean, if she gets out to the colour of 6-4 that Johnny's talking about, and it's not impossible because of the alchemy that goes on with prices on favs in the morning of these big races, I'll be consulting my mortgage advisor, because this filly is surely more like, even as the greatest price in the world, it's an Australian price, 50-50. This filly is surely more likely to win this race than not.
Okay. Graham Rodway, what wins the Oaks and why?
I think Minding will win it as long as the ground isn't absolutely bog testing, which it shouldn't be. Although I do want to see the first few races before I go consulting my mortgage broker, that's for sure. And I'll be back in Architecture in the market Without.
Okay. Jonathan, you have the casting vote.
Well, I mean, Turret Rocks would have been my tip. Ronan, but just the ground, I think she needs it really, really fast. I thought she might have been a sporting each way chance against the favourite, but if you put a line to her, which you probably have to, Minding just has too much in hand on the rest of them for her to get beat.
Okay, we'll go for a short break, but after that we'll come back to discuss a high-quality undercard.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at one meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25, 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
All right, welcome back to our Oaks Day Postcast. With me in the studio is Graham Rodway, and on the line from Ireland is Jonathan Mullen, and from Paddy Power, Brendan Duke. Brendan, shoot us off with some prices for the opening race on the card, the Investigator Woodcut Stakes.
Certainly will, Ron. We're struggling with this race to split the top 4. It's 11-4 Joint Favs, Legendary Lunch and Tibber, 3-1 Hyper Focus, 100-30 Sea of Snow, and 16's Bar.
Okay, Graham, come to you. Biortino obviously won this race last year and went on to win the Coventry. Is there a possible Royal Ascot kind of 2-year-old in there?
It's strange because there wouldn't usually be, but then Biortino did go and do it last year. So, and Mark Johnston's obviously got Sea of Snow in there, who's looked good in a couple of outings so far. A filly, of course, getting the weight. I always find this a really hard race to weigh up, because not only have you got a bunch of juveniles that are lightly raced, open to loads of improvement and hard to equate their form, but you've got to add in the fact who's going to handle the track. I mean, how many horses have been beaten in this race before, having not handled the track, then flown home to finish second or third, probably being the best horse in the race. Now, I think that's one thing you probably won't have to be worried about with a Mark Johnston runner, because they usually settle very well, they're usually well schooled at home, and they're usually quite straightforward rides, and that would probably put me on to Sea of Snow, but it's a really unattractive betting race for me.
Yeah, well, they're more or less off the same sort of terms, aren't they, Sea of Snow and Legendary Lunch? Yet the other
the same, yeah.
Short. Okay, well, we move on to the next race. The 10 furlong handicap is the Investigator Wealth and Investment Stakes. Brendan kicks off again with a few of the market principles, if you would. Okay,
11-4 Dark Red, 4-1 Felix de Vega, 6-1 What About Carlo, 7-1 Master of Finance, 9-1 Darshini, 10-1 Firefighting and Gold Prince, and 12-1 Bar.
And your own opinion on the race, Brendan? Dark Red, Ryan Moore on with a string of ones today, and that's going to be popular, isn't it?
Yes, he doesn't have much in hand, but he keeps just finding a way, which is possibly the secret to running up a sequence in handicaps. I thought maybe Master of Finance was interesting. He's a model of inconsistency, this horse, but he was third in it last year, and the form of his run the last days had a big boost with the horse winning what's the race in red card, the Zetland Gold Cup, is it?
Revolutionist, yeah.
Yeah, so if he could repeat that, he won't have any problem with ease on the ground, and he likes these turning, undulating tracks. If he had a going day, I'd say he's a fair price, but he's a win-only project.
Okay, so another one for Mark Johnston. Graham, anything you like there? When's Sanokian Star going to win a race again? He's down to 90 now. He's got to be coming soon, hasn't it?
Yeah, and when he wins one, he'll probably go and win bundles, won't he? It'll be a typical Mark Johnston. All of a sudden, he'll just turn around, having looked like he's bang out of form. A bunch of old Epsom favourites, aren't they? I mean, what about Carlo and Firefighting and Sanokian Star? Don't they turn up for all these 1 mile, 2 furlong handicaps at Epsom?
Yeah.
And Dark Red will be hard to beat, but as Brendan was saying, I mean, he does keep winning, but I just get the feeling that the handicapper's got him. I mean, how many more times can we keep grinding out victory? The horse that I like is Gold Prince, who I know is really highly regarded by Sylvester Kirk. Last season he gave him a really good write-up in his stable tour, and he made him look a bit of a plonker, because Gold Prince just ran terribly for the rest of it after he'd bigged him up. But then, first time out this season, there was signs that he might be getting to the bottom of Gold Prince. I thought he ran very well in second, looked as if he might need the run, and I think Ed Greatrex is a very interesting booking for Sylvester Kirk. Won the race last year on Elbreth, claims £5. I think Gold Prince might finally fulfil his potential for Sylvester.
What's the price on Gold Prince, Brendan?
10-1.
Okay. Not bad then at all. Johnny, do you want to pitch in here?
Yeah, I disagree slightly with the lads. I don't think Dark Red is finished. I think he's won his last 2 races, despite the gallop being unsuitably slow. I think he's settled better. He's got a bit of Epsom experience. The gelding operation is definitely working, and he's turned into the horse that Dunlop thought he would be last year. I think he'll take all the beating. I think he'll be one of the more popular horses in the card tomorrow, that's for sure.
Yeah, Dark Red for you then. Moving on then, the Diomed Stakes. Brendan, kick us off again.
Sure.
A couple of old favourites here again.
Indeed. A-Rod, 3-1 Fav, 4-1 Decorated Night, 11-2 Mind Your Own Business, 13-2 Custom Cut and Sovereign Debt, 9-1 Tullius, and 12's Bar.
Okie doke, Graham. We've got the 1-2 from last season. Is that the way it's going to play out again?
Yeah, it's a bit of a different race to that usually. It's usually quite a small field, can be a bit muddling, and I think A-Rod made all last year, won quite easily. I don't fancy him so much this year. He sort of lost his form, didn't he? I think he was off in Australia, wasn't he, and all over the world. But and I was a bit disappointed with him first time out. I like Decorated Night, who won a bit of a nonsense race at Goodwood last time. I backed one of Sir Michael Stout's in at King's Fate, and they went no pace. But this horse has always had a really good turn of foot, and he used it to good advantage that day at Goodwood off a slow pace. And I think I can see him getting dropped in here by Andrea Azzini. I mean, he's drawn 11, which is obviously an absolutely awful draw right on the outside. But I'm not so concerned, because this horse does have to be dropped in. He will be coming from behind, so he should be able to get across towards the inside rail, and then hopefully unleash that good turn of foot inside the final couple of furlongs. Okay,
very good. Decorated Night for you and Diomed Stakes. Johnny, do you want to pitch in?
Yeah, I'm disgusted myself. I'm going to tip it up Tullius here. Ronan, I can't believe I've ever done that. But an 8-year-old wearing a visor for the first time. It's just the ground thing. I mean, as Graham said, the key to tomorrow will be have a look and see how the Wood Cup plays out, what the ground is riding like. But I think A-Rod definitely wants it quick. I was very disappointed with Custom Cut last time at Leopardstown. Bitterly disappointed with him. A lot of the rest of the horse didn't do much of a muchness, but Tullius does have a bit of form on the track. I think a bit of juice in the ground will suit him. He's 8 years of age, I know, but Andrew Balding's yard in good form. Visor off the first time. The race could be run to suit tomorrow, and I think Brendan said 8 or 9-1 Tullius, and if that's the case, I think a chance of you Bobby Twain him.
Okay, Tullius for you, Jonathan. All right, and then one more race before the Oaks is the Investigator Mile, and this is a betting race, isn't it, Brendan? Take us through them.
Yes, well, it's a betting race if if you've got some imagination. 5-1 the field, Dutch Uncle. 6-1 Melvin the Great. 7-1 Examiner. 15-2 Instant Attraction. 8-1 Jack's Revenge. 9-1 brings in Fieldsman and Spring Offensive. Oh, and Alcatraz as well. And 10's Bar.
This is a betting race. 5 and 6-1 the field. This is what you want, isn't it, Shirley? Graham, come on, you're going to back me up here. What do you like? This is the best bet of the day here.
Yeah, it's a shame it's not the last race. We could have been trying to get out of the jail without Alcatraz, couldn't we? But no, Examiner. After that terrible punt, Examiner at Newmarket last time. I was not impressed with the rider. It was given a lot to do by the rider. Made a big move coming inside the final furlong. To be fair, didn't get the clearest of runs. Finished second. To also Roger Charlton's, ridden by George Wood, whose name escapes me. But I thought he was the moral winner of that race. I thought if he'd got out a little bit earlier and he'd got a better run through the race, I would have fancied Examiner to win that. Now again, he's got drawn 7, not ideal, sort of towards the middle to outside. But he's another hold-up horse, so hopefully they'll go hard. He'll be able to slot in, and then obviously we'll be hostage to fortune as they're all coming down the camber in the straight. But fingers crossed he gets a better run and more lucky in running. I'll fancy Examiner.
Okay, Examiner for you. Brendan, can you use your imagination here for a selection?
Oh God, you're gonna love this. I'm gonna use my imagination to tip up the Fav. It's certainly not a bet I'd be having, but I think his form does stand up quite well. That Wheatles finished third in a Phillies listed race the other day. He was beat by her in Windsor, and he beat Windsor House the last day. He was very well backed, went off Fav for the Zetland Gold Cup. He ran terribly, but he was backed like a horse who was well handicapped. He only got £3 for that last win, and he'll handle the ground. I'd say he's still well handicapped, but this looks an impossible race to me. Okay. Give us a tip. Give us a tip for it. You said it's a betting race.
I'm just asking the questions.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair.
I've been told I'm not an expert, and I have to just ask the questions to the experts.
Okay. Well, there you go. I've tipped up the Fav. You've exposed me as a fraud once again.
Yeah. Well, you've gone Fav so far.
Indeed. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, we're going to come back after a small break where we have selections after this.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at one meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25, 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
Okay, Jonathan, we'll come to you first. Your best bet on Oaks Day at Epsom?
I'm going to go for Dark Red.
Dark Red for Ryan Moore. Graham Rodway?
Yeah, it's actually in the race after the Channel 4 goes off air. Harlick for Roger Varian and Andrea Zenny. It's got to give £4 away to the rest in this listed race, but this also looks like a group performer to my eye. I mean, he absolutely flew home at Goodwood last time out, having had a terrible run, got a long way behind, was very unlucky not to win the race. Was hugely unlucky at Lingfield as well on finals day when he got pampered and again flew home, should have won. I mean, how this also ain't coming in with a bunch of ones by its name, I've got no idea. He's got a good draw in stall 1. Again, we're going to need luck in running, but Andrea Zenny is riding fantastically well at the moment. I think that he's riding almost better than anyone out there. I trust him to get the job done on Harlick.
Okay, very good. And Brendan, no doubt a Fav, but let's hear it anyway. Come on.
I'll chance Hyper Focus, who, I mean, basically you can throw the 4 up in the air. This isn't like tipping a Fav. This is like tipping a co-Fav. So I'll tip Hyper Focus. It wasn't much of a maiden he won in Leicester, but I like the way he did it, and he'll handle the ground. I'll chance him.
Okay, Doc. Thanks a million. Right. While we have the guys on, Jonathan and Graham, we'll ask for a quick look at the Derby because they're not going to be on tomorrow. Paul Keeley will be here. Graham, you just take us quickly through the Derby and what your tip is, maybe?
Yeah, it's quite a weak Derby, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, as compared to recent years, it's a bit disappointing. And in a normal standard year, I wouldn't fancy Wings of Desire at all, but I think he's the most likely winner. It was quite a decent test of stamina. They went a good pace in the Dante. I was impressed with the way he stayed on strongly towards the finish. Now, he is from that family of old brogues, isn't he? Goldwing and all that lot. But they were all pretty useful at 3 before going off the boil later in their career. And I expect Windsor Desire to be the same. I expect him to improve rapidly at 3 and then lose his way later when they'll probably need to retire. Hopefully, this Wings of Desire win the Derby.
Okay, and Jonathan Mullen, who wins the Derby?
Yeah, it's just a grand lottery year run, aren't they? I mean, we expected a lot more of US Army Ranger, but his form looks very poor. If he didn't have the address he had, we wouldn't be talking about him at all. Wings of Desire probably is the one that looks most progressive of the lot trained in Britain and Ireland. He was good in the Dante, and he's only been around for a couple of weeks. So I'd imagine that John Gosling will leak considerably more improvement out of him. But I'm going to go with Cloth of Stars. Trained by Under Frob, he's a Group 2 winner last time by Sea the Stars. He looks to be progressive. He's got plenty of experience. All the fancy horses like Wings of Desire, US Army Ranger, Duvel, Cloth of Stars, all drawn high, all drawn together. And I just have a feeling that Under Frob wouldn't be bringing something over to Epsom on a whim. I think he spots that this could be a weak year and that this Derby's up for grabs. And I'm going to chance him, but no real strong fancy, I must say that.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Brendan, you're back tomorrow, so we can hear all your views on the Derby then.
Certainly.
Okie doke. And join us tomorrow again when an ever-informed Paul Keeley will be here to take you through the race. My thanks to Graham Rodway, to Jonathan Mullen and to Brendan Duke today, and wish you the best of luck for all your punting on Oaks Day at Epsom.
The Racing Postcast in association with Paddy Power. They stream all UK and Irish racing live on your mobile, tablet or PC.